You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back.
Hello and welcome back into My Wheelhouse. Today is April 29th. We are into the semifinals of the NBA playoffs. The NFL draft has concluded. Got a thought on how the Patriots did?
The Patriots did well. I really like the quarterback that they got with
like
pretty good value pick. Yeah, Jarrett Stidham.
Wow.
Stidham the stud.
Okay.
I like that they went after a wide receiver, N'Keal Harry. I think he's.
I can't believe the coverage that gets over
strong.
3 days. You know, it's just like
There's a lot of picks to be made.
Hour after hour.
N'Keal Harry's a strong guy.
What about the guy
Gets
with
a lot
the really
of
long hair?
50-50 balls. Yeah, he looks cool. Winovich.
Yeah.
Winovich.
Yeah.
He's a Michigan guy, so Brady will like him.
That's right, they have a history.
I think Belichick had a solid B+ draft.
That's good.
Yeah.
He's hit and miss with drafts, but he did a good job.
I don't know why he drafted a punter, and not only that, he traded up to draft a punter when we already have a good punter in Ryan Allen, but he's smarter than me.
And
so.
Bill, we trust.
That's right. So we got our 4 series to talk about. Playoff Al has returned.
Playoff Al, baby.
The only series that wasn't concluded last week concluded over the weekend with a Game 7 where Denver overcome the San Antonio Spurs. Does LaMarcus Aldridge get Chump of the Week for his hearing, loss of hearing, on not being able to hear Popovich and the coaching staff? Does he get a Chump?
I thought it was DeRozan, but it was him.
Aldridge, well, because
collectively.
Jokic was holding the ball. It was a collective Chump.
I thought they were fairly graceful in defeat. You know,
Graceful in defeat.
I thought fairly, nothing
that
compared.
makes sense.
You know, they weren't bad.
It just
They got beat. They got beat.
I think I give Aldridge a chump. It was clear that everyone, it might have been like 9 different people were yelling at him to foul, and he wasn't fouling. Right?
Yeah.
You gotta know
that's true.
You got to know in that situation that you got to foul.
True. Yeah, but I mean, you don't need a coach to be telling you either.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
That reiteration.
Clearly he does.
So I was actually thinking that Popovich was probably telling him not to foul because that's the only reason they wouldn't foul. And I'm going,
Well, that's
what does he know that I don't know?
Some maybe speculation is maybe Aldridge thought they were only down by 3, so it was like a 1-possession game. Maybe they thought that, I don't know. I think chump.
It's just kind of sad that they didn't get the foul in because it was such a good series, and it was the only series that really went the distance.
It was a pretty defunct ending.
Yeah.
It was very unusual. But I think the deserving team ended up winning in the
Absolutely.
end. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We can get to it.
No duplicates last week.
We'll start with the Denver Nuggets and the Portland Trailblazers. The only team yet to play their Game 1. They'll have that game tonight in Denver. Denver, obviously, the 2 seed, and Portland, the 3 seed. We're seeing every top seed advanced across all of the NBA playoff landscape.
Chalk.
Chalk, yeah. As expected, I feel, but with excitement along the way. I think that both of these teams are going to be looking across the court at a pretty different opponent than what they faced in the first round for a lot of different reasons. Just based off of macro view, do you see Damian Lillard continuing to really put his imprint on this playoffs as one of the top 5 players? Do you think Jokic and the Nuggets can really hone in on the weaknesses of the Blazers that maybe the Thunder weren't able to? Where's your meter kind of leaning?
I think Dame Dollar is going to get his every game, but
What do we call him, Dame Dollar?
Dame Dollar.
Now, how long has he had
Dame.
that? Like, I was thinking, he all of a
That's
sudden,
his rap alias.
Now he's got to upper echelon where he's known by his first name like that. That's, has he always been known by Dame?
Dame.
Yeah.
I mean, since he came to the league,
Really?
it's Dame.
First time I heard
got
other
a
players
lot
on the
of-
call.
he's got-
Well, there's not that many players that are known by their first name, right?
He's hit game winners in the playoffs before. He hit one like 5 years ago.
Dame.
Which
Well, he's
was
got a lot of
pretty big
nicknames. Like Logo Lillard came this year.
Dame, but that's what the other players are calling him when you hear them.
Some just call him like Dame Dog.
Yeah, Dame Dog.
I mean, you can call him
He's up
whatever
there
you
now
want.
with Steph and LeBron and Kyrie.
Yeah,
and
he's a
Dame.
household name among
Household name,
basketball fans now. But the thing with this matchup is I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Portland because whereas San Antonio was able to get a lot of points against Denver down low and on the interior, I think Portland is more of a perimeter scoring team, and Enes Kanter getting banged up on top of already losing Nurkic late in the season. I think that's going to be a recipe for disaster for Portland.
Yeah,
I don't think they match up very
the
well
thing with
against
that
Denver.
is that it's the matchup with Jokic that's a problem. I mean, it's not really. I can't picture Kanter playing being able. So in that backup center, it's not Collins. Who's the backup center?
Myers Leonard.
Yeah. So that and he's not playing many minutes.
Yeah.
terrible. He's
Collins has been a liability.
They got a serious problem there. I think the most interesting thing in that it comes from Denver's side to Portland, and that is the guard matchup. That's a cool guard matchup, boy. Where you got Murray and Harris versus CJ and Dame. I mean, that is really pretty cool. That's a high. And the question is, can Denver's guys actually match up with that? And maybe they can. What we talked about before is that it looks like that team is progressing. And you saw Murray hit some pretty good shots, clutch shots, the floating one-footers, and they may be ready.
I think
Can Murray defend? Though?
Right. So as that series progressed, you're very right. I grew more confident in the Nuggets game to game as they progressed, because in Game 1, Game 2, they did have a deer in headlights, first time in the playoffs, young team, young player, young mindset look about them. But as that progressed, they began to become more of an experience than that athletic look that was spry and the energy and the smart, and they were really cohesive, the things that we knew for them for their strong, successful regular season that they had to get the #2 seed. And I think we're going to see more of that in this series. I feel bad slighting Portland again. I mean, obviously, I chose OKC in 7, I believe, in the first round, and I think I'm going to choose Denver in 7 in this series as well. And I think a lot of the things we are discussing will be the major cogs for that. I think Jokic, if he's not the best player in the series, he'll be the second-base player in the series, depending on how Lillard performs. I think that the fact that defensively in the last series, the system and the scheme that Popovich held in his team, in addition to a surprisingly strong defensive performance from Portal and overall strong defensive play from Aldridge in general, is going to be a far, far smaller concern when contemplating how to attack these really, really weak links in this Portland team. Where the injured Enes Kanter, he's going to get exposed. Where in the OKC series, he was able to drop back and depend on his strength if Steven Adams came at him. Denver doesn't run a lot of pick and roll, and that's a very common way to expose a big who's not really sleight of foot and stuff like that. But they do a lot of action on the top of the key with Jokic, between Jokic and Murray, between Jokic and Harris. A lot of DHOs where decisions are being made and you need to make defensive reads and you need to be able to cover Jamal Murray flying through, catching the ball and immediately taking a 15-foot jump shot, a shot that he hit impressively well in the first round. So I think that Kanter is going to get exposed. If he's not healthy, then whoever they're going to have out there is going to get exposed. I do think that Portland can win if Jamal Murray has a really bad series. And I think that's the only way that Portland wins is if Jamal Murray is a sieve defensively and offensively he has more poor games than the strong Murray games that we know. He's obviously an inconsistent guy, but if he's leaning more towards the inconsistency on the negative side, I think that's how Portland will be able to succeed.
I think it's also going to be up to Jokic's durability. He looked really tired by Game 7. Midway through that game, he looked pretty exhausted. So, if this series also goes 6 or 7, how's Jokic going to be doing at that point? But, I mean, there's no denying that he's the smartest player on the floor.
Oh, absolutely.
In this series.
He's been incredible.
In last series, he's just a magician. He always seems to make the right move. They take care of the basketball when the ball goes through him. But, endurance might be a factor.
We're seeing so many top-level performances by MVP candidates, and when I'm watching Jokic, and it took me a while to warm up to him because I don't really see him, but there's nobody more valuable to his team than Jokic. No, I mean, when you think of that, he really mentally, physically carried that team from that first defeat and going forward, and he's been great. Yes. And they'll do things like they take the ball out of bounds and they give it to him on the inbounds pass, and he takes it right down the middle of the court. They don't wait for him to get down the other end to post up, and I can't picture how he's going to be defended when he does that. He's been exceptional.
No, I'm very really pleased. Good. Very pleased how strong he's showed up. I mean, he's I think at this point he's clearly the best passing big of all time.
The good assists, he's
passing guys open and he's great. He's averaging essentially a 20-point triple-double.
As you would call Draymond Green assists, they're really good assists.
No, these are good, and
beautiful, nice looks, quick passes, backdoor cuts.
It's going to be interesting in this upcoming round. I think that Gary Harris his continued progression back from injury. We saw him have more confidence in himself athletically as the thrasher, as the most common cutter, and those target and receiver of some of Jokic's most impressive passes. He's starting to really get a hang of himself. I think that he could be a difference maker, obviously. It'll be really interesting to see if Will Barton can come out from the dredges. He was awful. That was some of the worst basketball I've ever seen him play. Because the playing time of the adjustment that was Torrey Craig to really neutralize guys that were on the other side for playing DeRozan and other guys on that team, I think that's going to be far less essential and crucial against a Portland team whose offensive threats at the swing aren't as dynamic in a Mo Harkless or a Aminu. You know what I mean? Those guys don't matter as much. So Torrey Craig is going to kind of get ostracized as much. So Will Barton, his offense is going to be a little bit more valuable.
Yeah, I don't even know who their third threat is.
Well, they're getting good minutes out of Paul Millsap, I think.
No, I mean Portland.
Portland.
Like, who's their third?
I think Aminu's a pretty decent
threat.
player.
Aminu's, but he's a good defender. He's probably going to be spending a lot of minutes on Paul Millsap, and I don't know if he can handle that. I think that at the end of the day, the dynamicism of Lillard and CJ won't be able to overcome their lack of depth and health and overall competence in the front court,
especially if Cantor's hurt.
Especially compared to what Denver has there.
It's sad that they don't have Nurkic, because I think it would be a much better series if Nurkic was in.
I would probably pick
because Portland is not deep enough.
Yeah, another thing I like about both those teams, they're pretty likable teams. And
Yes,
I like how they respect and like their coaches, which I noticed a lot. Like Malone, I've kind of downplayed a lot. He called on after timeout late in that game that Jokic just turned to him as he comes court and pointed right to him. That it was a beautiful play. It was a backdoor alley-oop high dunk, and they just credited him right off the bat. So you say, and then Stott he's also somebody that all players are really plugged into, and I like watching that. I like guys that the coaches is a part of what's going on. They're not separated from the players at all.
And they're not teams that complain every single call that's made, which we've seen with like a lot of the veteran teams. They just complain so often. I don't think you're seeing as many complaints. Lillard sometimes complains a little bit, but I think Lillard gets chipped out of a lot of the. A lot of the three-point fouls. Because a lot of the time they're calling him on the floor.
We'll talk about that later.
He doesn't sell it. But I think that these two teams, they're very cohesive and dynamic in terms of their relationship with one another. They work well on the floor. Their chemistry is very high, and they have a good relationship from top to bottom, not just in terms of the player personnel, but the whole organization from GMs down.
And the other thing to remember is one of these teams is going to the finals.
Well,
Western Conference Finals.
Well, conference finals.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's
a long way for either one of these two teams to get this year.
No, I think it's going to be exciting. No matter what happens for win or lose, I think both of these teams have had a successful season at this point. You can't say that it's a failure for a team that lost their until C.J. McCollum really showed up in the playoffs. He was their third best player. Nurkic was their second best player for the majority of the season, so they lost their second best player. And then for the young Denver team that wasn't even in the playoff picture at all last year, both teams have had successful seasons. Neither one should be ashamed if they bow out now. I have Denver in 7. Mike, what do you got?
Denver in 7. Home court. How can you?
I think it's going to make a difference. That was the big difference maker. Sure. That was the difference maker in the San Antonio series. It was so loud in there that Aldridge had no clue what was going on. That was the difference maker.
I'll stay with you. I'll go Denver in 7. I wish I could dissent and pick Portland because I love them.
We're all guessing anyway.
That shot by Lillard at the end of that series, last series, that was one of the best shots in divisional rounds history, I think.
Yeah, there's unbelievable. There's only been 5 series clinching buzzer-beating shots, and Damian Lillard has 2 of them in playoff history.
One of my coworkers was saying Paul George had terrible defense there. I'm like, no, he had great defense.
Pretty good defense.
He had decent spacing, and then when he was watching the clock, just like Lillard was watching the clock, and then when it went down to 2 seconds, he took a full step up, he was ready, and he was a half inch away from blocking that shot.
Was that a good shot?
For Lillard,
if he missed, it was an awful shot.
37 feet, it was a good shot.
For Lillard,
that's what George is saying. George is saying, that wasn't really a good shot.
Yeah, Lillard is shooting something like 70% from 30-plus feet in that series, so for him, it's a great shot.
I mean, yeah, and then Portland's coach was you could see his face. He was just like, wow. I mean, I can't believe he took that shot, but he made it. You can't doubt Lillard from anywhere.
Fantastic.
It's just lethal. Single-handedly saved that round.
It's fantastic, and they're going to be they're already not favored in this series. I think they like the mentality of being the underdog. So let's see if they can overcome that again.
Oh, did you see the shirts that they were wearing, by the way?
Which one?
You know how they said next question, Westbrook, and the shirts that said got bricks.
Got bricks.
Next question.
Yeah. Very funny. All right, Golden State, Houston, a much more tumultuous of a series to cover. This is what has been circulating the airwaves today. Since their matchup yesterday, many consider this to be the preemptive finals, as it was last year. We saw the very exciting conference finals. The Houston Rockets went down in flames with their 27 missed three-pointers. The rematch starting now. Golden State got the Game 1 victory, 103-100, after a pretty unusual 104.
Yep.
Sorry, controversial ending.
So you forgot the second technical.
Yes, that's right, technical foul. I stopped watching after the technical. Yeah, you're right. The basketball first in terms of the outlook on the series, and then we can get into the whole officiating thing. We've seen a lot from Kevin Durant performing at a MVP caliber level. Harden wasn't at the same nuclear level that he was at the regular season, but he was still really strong in that first round series. Just in terms of projecting the matchup between these two guys, based off of what you saw in the first game, how do you think that changes or alters your perception of what was going to happen in the series?
I think the Rockets, while they are a little dismayed by refereeing that we can talk about in a little bit, I think they should also be very optimistic, considering they had pretty much just Harden, Paul, and Gordon scoring, and they still were like one late shot out of winning the game. I mean, they were in this game all the way through, and it was in Golden State, and it was a game where you got Klay Thompson is clearly banged up.
No, he's hurting.
And I really think the Rockets might be able to take them down if they can win one or two in Golden State. They can absolutely. I think they can absolutely do it.
I think
they're in a good situation.
The energy in the
they don't get nothing from Capella though. You need something from your big man.
He's probably
who's worth
still recovering.
How much money?
He's probably still recovering off of that infection that he had. But I definitely thought that this game was more promising to the Rockets than it was towards the Warriors.
Absolutely.
Obviously, in the arena, you'd think that the energy and all the cheering and stuff, if you leave the room for a minute, but you still got the noise of the game on, you think when you're going to come back that the Warriors are going to be up 25, and you realize that it's only a one-point game. And then the more that you're watching, you're saying, okay, Harden's really getting what he wants. Capella is failing. Capella was the one weak spot for them that was really, really strong. But I really loved what I was seeing from Eric Gordon. I think Eric Gordon put in a really, really strong defensive series against Donovan Mitchell in the previous round. And I think that he, obviously Klay is hampered, but he showed that on off-ball moving, that he's improved a lot in terms of being able to weave in and out of screens and cover Klay. And on-ball, he did a surprisingly strong job on Steph as well. So he could be an interesting X factor. Before the series started, I was prepared to make a bold choice and say that I think the Rockets will be able to win the series. Even though everything I just said, that I think that the Rockets should be happy about the way that this game went, even though they're obviously not. I think that after just thinking about it a little bit more, I think I am still going to lean the Warriors just because of the talent disparity that they do have. What do you think?
I think, unfortunately, the story is being missed. The story is that Golden State, on very short rest, came in there with a couple of injuries on Curry and Thompson, and took game one. I think that's the story there. I wasn't really expecting, I wasn't sure they were going to take that guy. I wasn't sure that Curry was going to be okay. I wasn't sure that Thompson was going to be okay. I'm seeing some real positive things with Golden State, and if Curry is healthy, I don't think Houston's going to beat them. I think Golden State's is going to take them down. And I like how, and you won't like this, but I think Draymond Green has started to play. You talk about playoff Al. I think we're seeing playoff Draymond Green there. He's had two really strong games in a row where 14 virtual triple doubles. The game he played in the last, the clinching game against the Clippers, I thought was exceptional. It was one of the best games I've seen a player play this year. Was his game in that game. He brought all the energy that team needed, and in that first quarter, he was dynamite. He had 10 rebounds in the first quarter and a couple points on tip-ins that he's going. He's active all over the floor. And then Durant, wow. I mean, he separates himself from a guy like, you know who he's separating from me, in my mind? He's separating himself skill-wise, skill set-wise from the Freak, from Giannis. There's a whole set of skill there that the Freak does not have. That guy, so you've got him and you've got Curry. I don't see Houston beating this team. I don't.
Yeah, I think since the game where Golden State gave up the large lead in the first series, I think Kerr said something to him, and Durant, ever since then, has been, to put it your way, nuclear.
Yeah,
he's just unstoppable.
averaging like 37
He's just taking over games, and he looks like one of the best playoff players of all time.
He's doing it in a good flow, almost similar to how Kyrie's doing it in a good flow for the Celtics. Well, you looked at the end of that game, and he's the go-to guy, obviously. The games he's having are off the charts. But when you got down to it at the end, he sees the matchup, Curry and Nene, and he backs off, goes to the other side of the court, and says, "Steph, this is yours." Sure enough, he's got it.
Yes, I thought that Steph looked pretty healthy overall.
Yeah, I did too.
And I think
he did pretty well.
I understand what you're saying about flow, but I think Durant was more so in Durant's flow, not necessarily the Warriors' flow. And so far that's been fine, because obviously that's really, really good in an efficient way to make it a successful victory. Yeah, and I think that disagree. More often than not, he's going to be able to bring you to the finish line and to the promised land. But if you want to blow some teams out, I think you need to play through Steph and Clay. But you can't do that if both of them aren't healthy. Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing Kerr turn to Durant and say, Durant, I need you to pull. I need you to shoot more. I need you to take 25 plus shots. And he's being able to do that. And he's doing it at high efficiency. And that's what's ended up them winning.
But it's different. We saw Durant flow last year, and it was bad.
Yeah.
When he started playing like he played in OKC virtually. We're not seeing that right now. He's different than he was when Curry was out last year. He's more in a flow with the rest of his team. And when that game he played when he scored 50, you got to be kidding me. That
was incredible. He's been phenomenal.
It's off the chart. I want to talk about the refs and everything, because I think that's
Can I close it out?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that I thought Draymond is continually horrible. But in that first quarter that you're discussing, where he's penetrating and he's scoring and he's
I'm talking
rebounding.
the first quarter of Game 6.
Oh, Game 6.
That's the game. I think he dominated that first quarter and set the tone for that game.
Yeah,
did you see that game?
I did see that, and it was honestly his first quarter in that game was pretty similar to the first quarter that he had in Houston. He was getting to the hoop a lot and he was scoring a lot.
I don't think you can use the word horrible with that first quarter that he played against the Clippers.
But I think he's been great.
I think that the thing is,
so you got two greats and a horrible.
Yes, I think
something's wrong with that.
No, the thing is that Draymond doing that is the nature of what the other team is wanting the Golden State Warriors to do. That Draymond being that Draymond is great. That's exactly what the Los Angeles Clippers want. That's exactly what the Houston Rockets want. They want Draymond Green thinking he's a go-to scorer.
He had 10 rebounds in the first quarter, including 2 tip-ins. That's not what the Clippers want.
I'm transitioning.
They don't mind him shooting stuff.
I'm transitioning.
He had lots of intangibles.
I'm transitioning more to the Houston series, and in that first quarter, he was being the one that was forced into taking shots, forced into taking the ball to the hoop, and that's exactly what you want to happen if you're the Houston Rockets. You want the ball in his hand as much as possible. You want him taking the shot. You want him making the decision, because more often than not, that means that it's not in the hands of Durant, Steph, or Clay, and it's not in the decision makers that are going to be the most successful ones. I think that he has been strong defensively. He did a very good job on Capella. I think that he was partially responsible for Capella not showing up. I think that his rebounding on Capella...
Without his defense, they don't win. Right, I mean, you can't say he's terrible. You can't say his game is not terrible at all.
He's been bad. I think he's bad. I think he's bad for the Warriors. But we can transition to the refs.
That's silly.
He's bringing championship energy to that team and to that club right now.
Yeah, championship energy. Absolutely.
Absolutely. When you bring championship energy, you are not bad. You are not horrible.
Well, it's just like if you're the singular player that the other opposing team is scheming to funnel everything to you, that means that there's clearly something wrong with your game.
I think you're just persistently stubborn about him because you think he's overrated. You say things like horrible, and it's just
And I've been with you all year. I don't think he's had a good year, but I think
he's been great defensively.
I think he's stepped up. I think
they don't win game 1 of this series without his defense.
Hey, can we get to that?
Okay, so the officiating is a pretty big issue, and it's clearly been deeply rooted in the Houston Rockets' mind since all the way to last season.
They don't win game 1 of this series without the refs either.
Right. So not put aside what happened yesterday in the Sunday night game, where there was 4 or 5 supposed missed calls on James Harden and Chris Paul 3-pointers. A couple from Clay that were agreeable. The last one with Draymond, pretty finicky. We can talk about breaking those up. But it was released today that there was a report that the Houston Rockets audited the Game 7 of last year where they missed 27 threes, that there was something like 81 points that they got gypped out of because the officials didn't call fouls. It's Daryl Morey is so concerned and so he's so attached to the manipulation of the officials. And you can see that permeate through to how Harden plays. And a lot of people play the game, and some people play the game to draw fouls, and some people play the game expecting fouls, and they accentuate contact, and they'll flop and flail. And obviously we have flopping fines that were put into place that aren't really used enough, but what have you. What's different with Harden and the Houston Rockets is they're not playing to draw fouls, draw the whistle. They're playing to deceive. They're playing to fool. They're playing to bend what the reality of what the referees think should happen, what to call, what not to call. You know that in the offseason and in the weekends, James Harden and Darryl are looking through the officiating playbook, man book, and saying, okay, what's a loophole where they would be confused in a game time situation where they would call a whistle or not? It's weird. It's really weird.
It's the trump card.
I think from a refereeing standpoint, I look at this and I say, that's a really difficult call going on right now.
That's a hard call.
The landing space issue is just unbelievable. So you've got to defend both ways. So you've got an offensive player and a defensive player both coming like this, and then you get the referee is going to watch here and has got to judge the proper landing space so that if the guy lands too far into the landing space, then the guy's in jeopardy. And at the same time, you've got the offensive player looking to do the same thing to get into his space. Very, very difficult issue, I think. You've also got, since the Kawhi Pachulia, you've got, a directive to all the officials, and it's now a point of emphasis, and you've got what Sheamus going on where you've got Harden virtually every time he's kicking his feet. And he's kicking his feet when there's nothing going on. I would then from a coaching point of view, I'm saying, Hubie Brown, 85. I just can't believe how this guy's doing game. I really enjoyed his broadcast, Hubie Brown's play. And I told you before, what he says is that he doesn't understand why these guys. And when you look at Draymond Green and you look at Clay and you look at those guys, they're actually trying to block that shot. And what Hubie Brown is saying, when's the last three-pointer you've seen blocked other than Zion during the you don't and as a coach, what I always taught was, and I got it from other coaches, I don't get it myself, is the way you can test a shot is the heel of your hand to the chin. Heel of your hand to the chin, right there. You're not going for the ball, and I don't see anybody doing that. And I think that's one of the problems.
One of these times it's going to whack you right in the beard.
Yeah, well, your fingers are up like this, so it's the heel of your hand to your chin, but that's how you can test a shooter. These guys, they're going for block shots, and they're creating that issue where how are you going to go for that ball without creating a landing space situation where you can't do it. Because I'm looking at Draymond and I'm looking at Clay. I'm saying they were pretty good defensive plays because they're showing those plays over and over and over again. And you say they're turning their body to get out of the way. They're trying to land in the right spot. But realistically, if they have to land in the same spot they're going up, they can't do that.
I think I could see both sides of the argument. I could see the referee's side and the NBA's side, and I could see the Rockets side as well, because the Rockets sort of put themselves in this position because Harden's been getting these calls all regular season.
That's what's weird.
That's what's weird, and that's why I understand when I'm looking back at the calls that they're complaining about, there are legitimately 3 step backs where they're definitely impeding where Harden's going to land. But on the fourth one, on the last call,
the 10 seconds left with Draymond.
Yeah, with Draymond, he steps back.
I didn't think that was
He's 2 feet behind the 3-point line, and Draymond jumps up and contests outside of Harden's hip, but Harden's feet, like you guys said, swoops forward almost a foot above the 3-point line. Right. So where is Draymond supposed to land?
Right. No,
and not only that, he didn't land in his spot. Draymond was able to evade Harden.
And Chris Paul was almost more blatant, the way he threw his hip into that.
But you can't expect Draymond to play defense and dodge a body that's flying towards him. Harden's game is just ridiculous. That's
where he's going to come down for a landing spot. I would say, when I'm thinking about that, I think, and not in Harden's complete defense or Paul's complete defense, but this tactic thing. You got to go. I mean, look at what Paul Pierce's tactics were. They had Kevin Durant uses Paul Pierce tactics, and so does Harden when he's driving the hoop. He's using. They're all looking for that edge. They're all looking for where can I get my arm so that that guy can't possibly avoid following me. Durant's doing the same thing. That's how Durant's getting to the line. They're all looking for tactics.
Right. They're all trying to find a competitive advantage in an area where it might fly under the radar and on the line, teetering of what is legal and not allowed. But the balance between what we saw with the Zaza cut under, which is something that's clearly illegal, that was a highlight that at this point,
and behind the point
the
to that.
The Rockets are clearly trying to take advantage of the mindset that was really put on blast last year. They're basically exploiting that now, but that in comparison with the Reggie Miller rule, which was put in forever ago, where Reggie Miller would flail his legs getting offensive fouls every single time he shot it, so much that they had to put a rule in for it because other shooters started to doing it once they realized that Reggie was getting the whistle. And the collision of those two things, it's like it's a new variation of the block charge. The landing zone is so subjective. Of certain shooters jump forward more than others. Certain shooters are when they're moving. Harden, if hits a set shot, he never moves forward. But if he's on movement, he moves forward all the time. And how can you say how much he moves forward or doesn't move forward? If he's running into it, he might move forward 5 feet. We've seen Damian Lillard pull up from 27 and land at 24. It's like it's a really weird and unusual bias. I think that
take it a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm happy that it's happening because I do think because of the publicity that it's getting and because of just the frustration from the fan base, from the players, from all areas around, that's just monumenting together, and basically that's highlighting this kind of frivolous relationship between the officials and the players. I think it's more likely that they get it figured out. There's something more concrete in terms of a solution moving forward that the league puts into place in terms of what is or isn't a foul, what is and isn't allowed from both the offensive and defensive players.
But this should have been sorted out long ago. Like I don't think Harden has
No one was exploiting it to this level until now.
Harden was exploiting it during the regular season because he was getting all those 50-point games,
He's
40-point games.
James Harden leads NBA history. James Harden leads NBA history in three-point fouls.
It needs
leads
to be
NBA
said.
history.
It needs to be said.
Why is it just now becoming like a national
on
talking
Houston's
point?
behalf,
matters
it
more
needs
now.
to be said that there were 36 contested threes in that game. They took 47. I hate it. They took
More than half.
There were 36
Harden was
contested,
9 for 28.
36 contested threes, and there was one foul called in those 36 contests.
Yeah.
The first half, there were 4 of them that the referees at halftime said they made a mistake on the 4 in the first half. The Houston three-point shots.
I thought the Clay ones were fouls. I thought the Clay
So,
ones
yes,
were
so
fouls.
you
Clay
had
does
that,
not
so
know how
you
to guard
definitely
that.
have those. You've got the 4 in the first half that the refs missed that were contact, and that going forward. So in total context, Houston does have something to talk about here. I mean, when Harden starts referring to the Peculiar incident, that's ridiculous and stuff.
Close it out. How do you fix it?
Well, it's a stupid solution. You don't even want to hear it.
I'm interested. I want to hear your stupid solution.
I want to hear them try playing without the 3. And I just want to see what happens. I just want to see. I don't care
That's
whether
not
it's
gonna happen.
exhibition or whether.
Not gonna happen.
What? 47 threes, Shea?
Yeah.
And this guy is becoming just
Drawing-
paramount in the game.
drawing a foul on a three-pointer.
I want to see what it looks like without it again. I'm just interested to see how it plays. Do you contest shots the same way? No,
not
you
gonna
wouldn't.
The NBA doesn't have the explosive ratings that it has these days without the 3-point.
But it's going south. It's not getting better. It's not getting more enjoyable to watch.
People are learning how to game it.
83's taken in a game.
People are
Steph
learning how
Curry
to
is the
game it.
most popular NBA player, arguably, with LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Steph Curry has single-handedly become this 3-point monster.
No,
I think just get rid of the 3-point.
I think it's going to be.
There's plenty of players out there.
I think it's going to be a fantastic series. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a tough-fought battle where Golden State wins in 7. Who you got?
I got Golden State in 6.
Golden State in 6.
I'd say Golden State in 6 too. That was the Houston should have stolen that one. Without
they can
that,
still win this game.
And I don't like the wine.
Oh my God, they're whining way too much. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
it's not good for ratings.
All right, John Havlicek, R.I.P. Celtics great, Hall of Famer, 79 years old, was struggling with Parkinson's disease, passed away over this weekend. He played from 1962 to 1978. He's the all-time Celtics leading scorer, Hall of Famer. I think his career averages are like 21, 5, and 6 or something like that, or 21, 6, and 5. I think he's a 13-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 8-time All-NBA defense, even though for the first part of his career, all defensive teams weren't there. He's an 8-time champion, which is tied for second most ever, correct? Third.
You got Sam Jones and Bill Russell both got more.
Right, so tied for. Sam Jones has how many? 10?
Sam Jones got 9, I believe.
Sam Jones has 9? Okay, I thought they were tied for that. Yeah, but he averaged 39 and 8 in the 70-71 season. He was the Finals MVP in 73-74. Mike, what has Hondo meant in terms of your Celtic fanhood?
An awful lot. An awful lot. I think if you want to do the Mount Rushmore of the Boston Celtics, and Collins is saying this, and I really think, I mean, how often have we talked about Havlicek? Almost never. No. He might be underrated. That it's Russell, Kuzi, Havlicek, and Bird. That's the Mount Rushmore of Boston Celtics. Yep. And after that, you try to fit guys in after that. So he's the first one of the. They're all obviously getting older and everything. You wouldn't have thought he would have been the first one to go, but it's a monumental event. I know my life as a basketball player, a coach, and everything. He was tremendously influential as I watched the game growing up, and I watched his high school team. I'm a slow white guy who doesn't really jump, but I can shoot. And what I picked up from him is you never stop running. You just run. You run that court every single second. You never stop. You're in motion all the time. And he did that to the max. And there's testimony that's coming back from players and stuff that he is the type of player that you don't see now. And in this era, everybody else you look and you're saying, well, who's he like? There's nobody in today's game that plays like Havlicek, and you wouldn't know unless you actually watched him. The closest I could think of, maybe Bird, but the Bird didn't have the foot speed that he had, or the ability to get out and transition, and didn't have the defensive ability that Havlicek had, and maybe Kawhi Leonard, but Kawhi Leonard, he's not fast and in transition like he was. Kuzi calls him the best finisher in the history of the game. Collins supports that he's the best finisher, and that's weird now when you see all the dunks and stuff, but he was virtually 100%. Kuzi said he would have led the league 10 more, if he stayed with the Celtics 10 more years, he would have kept leading the league in assists every year, just on Havlicek the way he went like that. Yeah. And another thought I have there that obviously is at the top of the list with things is that you've got maybe 3 iconic calls that I can think of in the history of broadcasting. And you look at, the miracle on ice. Do you believe in miracles? Obviously, that's one of them. In 1951, when Bobby Thompson hit the shot heard around the world in baseball, it was the Giants win the pennant. The Giant win the pennant. Russ Hodges with the call. That's iconic. And then certainly, Havlicek stole the ball. Yes. It's all over.
Yeah, it's been circulating.
That goes down forever and ever. And I think that we're looking at, if he's underrated, it's too bad, because here's something that Heinz said with him that I thought was really pretty unique, is that when they took an x-ray of his lungs, they needed 2 x-rays. They couldn't fit his lungs on one x-ray. He's one of the most cardiovascularly, highly conditioned athletes to ever play, John Havlicek.
Yeah, his resting heartbeat was like something ridiculous. He's commonly accepted to be like one of the most durable players in NBA history. And he is the best 6 man. In an era where the league itself was a breath of anyone that was durable. A career that lasted 16 years was unheard of in terms of that time period, especially the length and durability from start to finish at as high a ceiling of his play.
15 of those years he played 81 games.
Yeah, he's great.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he was just known for, like you said, constant movement, just playing without the ball, playing with the ball, having great IQ, tenacious defense. He was a spark plug off the bench, best bench player of all time. Still the all-time leader in points for the Celtics.
In line with that, I mean, he was a 6. It's almost a disservice to focus on him as a 6 man, because there's no other team, certainly in that era, that had the luxury of playing a guy of that caliber as a 6 man. That Celtic team was so damn good that when he came in, he played as 6 man because the team was so good. He would have been a frontline star with every team in the league all the time. He wasn't a 6 man.
He said his one biggest regret was not staying in the league 1 year longer so he could play with Larry Bird.
Yeah, and that's another thing, the transition that he's
I'm sure Larry Bird regrets that.
He's a transition between the Russell years and the Bird years, where they won 2 more. They probably would have won at least a 3rd one. He separated his shoulder going into the finals on the east side with the Knicks, and they lost. He played virtually left-handed with a dislocated shoulder.
Very well.
And he was the best player. At that time, he was considered the best basketball player in the world. Yeah. And the best basketball. And you're talking about Oscar Robinson and Jerry West.
He was better than the guys.
He won a college championship too with Ohio State, and he went to 3 national championships.
You know who his teammates were? One of his teammates was Bobby Knight. Ohio
That's
State.
crazy. He got drafted by the Cleveland Browns too to play wide receiver.
It was also good baseball.
The ultimate Celtic.
That's right.
Rest in peace, Hondo.
Number 17.
Neurological diseases.
You know why he was called Hondo?
Let's go.
Why was he called Hondo?
I don't know.
Because he looked like John Wayne. And John Wayne was the movie was.
All right, let's quickly talk about this series. We saw Game 1 happen on Saturday, I believe, between the we're on Toronto Raptors and the Philadelphia 76ers. Kawhi Leonard, I think, had the biggest statement game of the playoffs so far. His efficiency and his dominance. Did he have a made shot that wasn't a swish? And he right now, the pantheon in terms of best player in the league is achievable by 5 guys. I think that Durant and Kawhi have probably put the most into that claim so far, and I have Kawhi right now as the best player in the league.
I should have never doubted that he would get back to that upper echelon.
I think he was always there.
Well,
I wonder how
there
good
were
he
questions.
was.
Right, when he had the full year out, I'm like, I don't think he could get back to that level that he was on. But like, he looked like Michael Jordan out there.
Yeah, he was
like
incredible.
he was getting to his spots so seamlessly, and just knows exactly how much space he needs to get his shot off. He just looked really. He was just so aggressive, and he was just, what's the word for it? He was just a man possessed. He was so focused.
Very strong.
And he took Jimmy Butler out of the game completely, which is like, I mean, how can you be so dominant on both sides of the floor and make this stupendous Philadelphia 76ers starting lineup look awful? They look terrible.
He's deceivingly strong. And so when he goes in and he puts that shoulder into you for separation, he gets 8 feet once he hits you like that and steps back. An interesting thing I think about Kawhi to me is that I think of all the free agents, to me, he'd be the most desirable by a lot. And what it is that he's coachable. I can't believe this guy is coachable. When you look at all the baggage, he becomes somebody. He doesn't have the LeBron wannabe factor like these other guys have, where he's like Kyrie and like Durant and Butler and those guys. He's different. He separates himself. He's odd different, but he focuses on his coach. He listens. You look, his eyes are focused on. He executes what the coach. He's plugged into the coach in a way that, Kyrie's trying to diagram plays during the timeout. He's getting off that now. He's trying to be the coach at the same time. They're all trying to be like LeBron is and have their input in it. He's not like that at all. He's the one I would want if I was looking for a free agent one. He'd be number 1 on my list.
I still just don't understand why it didn't work with him and Popovich. Because Popovich is such an incredible coach. They could have won multiple championships.
Before Game 1, I thought Toronto was the most formidable team in the East, and I thought they were going to handle Philadelphia in 6. This performance only really bolstered that thought process. I do think that Philly is going to have some bounce-back performances, hopefully stronger games from both Embiid, who's struggling with injuries and a stomach bug currently, and both Ben Simmons. Eventually, I got Toronto in 6, being able to overcome them. They're much deeper. They have much better chemistry, and they're able to exploit the many weaknesses of Philadelphia much easier.
The chemistry factor, I'm seeing a big difference. I haven't plugged into Nurse as much as I should, but when I'm hearing him now, I'm not hearing what I want to hear from Brown. And when I'm hearing Brown, it's weird when he talks like that. It's almost like he's surprised that Siakam's playing good. I mean, what's with that? You didn't know Siakam was a player.
He's like, I'll tell you what, that Siakam's doing well.
Toronto had a game plan. And their game plan was Gasol was going to be able to neutralize Embiid in a way that
he's been great defensively.
Embiid against Brooklyn. We looked at how good Brooklyn was, but they were pathetic in the paint. They were so bad that we talk about Detroit and Milwaukee and that effect. That on Embiid was like just slicing through butter down there with those guys. Now he steps in and Gasol plays nice position on him. Keeps him from getting all the way to the rim. That's a real factor in there, and that may go forward. He's a smart player, Gasol. I've underestimated his effect.
Who's got in the series? How many games?
I'm going Toronto in 6.
I think I'm going Toronto in 5.
Toronto in 5. I think that we may be selling Embiid overall a little short. I think
he'll come back.
He could have some huge performances, but overall, I think that his not being 100% health will end up being.
But think about it. Toronto has 2 defensive players of the year out there. Pascal Siakam is playing very good defense. Kyle Lowry's a pest. I mean, their defensive spacing is great. I think they've just out-coached and out-maneuvered this Philly team.
So Philadelphia.
They got Boban in there on high pick-and-roll screens, and
Philly has every single player except for their starting 5 can't play in the series.
Brett Brown should have took Boban out the moment they started capitalizing on Boban's ineffectiveness in the screen, and yet he kept him out there for another 5 minutes.
If Philadelphia doesn't start in this next game, with Simmons on Leonard,
Yes,
period.
I agree.
Without question. And start playing with this, a bunch of different guys playing him that are getting demolished by him. When Simmons is playing him and getting something done when he's playing him, there's no need to be, I don't care what it takes from the offensive end.
They've got
to sick him. They've got to do that.
All right, let's switch it over. If you don't land it, we're just going to go straight to Boston.
We've only got one left.
All right, the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Boston Celtics. A surprising game one, 112 to 90, 22-point blowout win by the Boston Celtics away in Milwaukee. We saw very strong performances from Kyrie Irving, 26, 7, 11. Playoff Al was fabulous. He only had 20 and 11, but the story was most over his effect on Giannis defensively and his ability to contain him. He was only credited with 3 blocks, but I feel like he had more like 5, but that's fine. We saw strong performances across the board from other players. Jalen played really, really, really fantastic. He had a lot of clutch three-pointers, a couple step-back ones. He had an awesome dunk on Giannis. Terry continued to outplay Eric Bledsoe, who had a big no-show, only had 6 points. He was 1 for 5. People are saying a lot about the shooting splits in terms of Boston was shooting above punching above its weight, and Milwaukee's going to bounce back. Milwaukee was 35 from the field. They shot 33 from 3, and Boston was 54 and 42. But where there's a little bit of fool's gold in there is I think that Boston, as we've talked about before, is a really strong matchup against Milwaukee because of what the Milwaukee defense cedes to the opponent. I think that they are willing to take to give three-pointers to certain offensive players, and they're willing to give up mid-range jump shots. The problem with that for an opponent in Boston Celtics is that no matter what the 5 is of the player on the court, most of the time it's going to be a good, strong three-point shooter. We talked in the beginning of the year that there was a chance that starting 5 could be all above 40% from 3. And the guys in the mid-range, whether it's Al Horford or Jason Tatum or Marcus Morris even, or Kyrie, those are really high-level 15 to 18-foot jump shot shooters, Gordon Hayward. So we have, in terms of the Boston Celtics, they have the personnel to really expose and exploit what Milwaukee is giving them. And I understand why it may seem, they made over 50% of their mid-range jump shot, the least efficient jump shot in the league. But I think I think it wasn't an abhorrent performance by the Celtics. I do think that we need to expect more out of Milwaukee moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I think Aaron Baines and Al Horford just had such an underrated defensive performance on Giannis. And then spacing the floor defensively, the Celtics really, really showed up. They were helping on Giannis when they had to. They weren't immediately double-teaming Giannis. You know, there were times where you could see Horford on the weak side sort of waiting until he made his move, because what Giannis does, he surveys the court and he waits to see, like, as soon as the double team comes, that's when he looks to pass it to a three-point shooter. But as soon as he made his move, that's when Horford would come from the weak side, right. and they made really difficult passing lanes. That's a real strong point right there. Yeah, they made very, very difficult passing lanes for Giannis, and I think
who's not that great of a passer.
Yeah, no, he's not going to like wow you like Jokic will. No. But I think Boston had a really good game plan going into this game. The game plan really surprised me.
Is what it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
He had 7 days to prepare for this, and Brad Stevens put a stamp on that game that was so obvious to me in terms of the scheme that he had with Giannis. And part of it is what you were saying, where he had Giannis. He always played him into a crowd, so they were always there. But they were so schooled in what they were doing. They were so perfect in their execution out there. That only came from that 7 days of preparation from Brad Stevens. They plugged in, but he had that team absolutely fine-tuned and ready out there. And what Sloan is saying is absolutely correct. When they went in, Giannis has got his head up all the time like this. And when his head up, they were all still hedged towards their man. And it wasn't until his head went down and he looked to make a turn that they made their move. Right. And when they made the move, they were still looking to get back. So those three-point shooters still had guys. So often you see guys that are pulled to Giannis, and then everybody's open. If you look at the defensive scheme there, they weren't pulled there far enough away from the men where they couldn't get back on top of them. Yep. Reminded me that game of the Bird years, the early Bird years. That team, that was that's everything we expected when you saw that team play. It was 48 minutes of virtual perfection. There were guys out there that I don't think did a bad thing. Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, and Marcus Morris. I don't think they made a mistake out there.
Yeah.
And Marcus Morris starting that game, and I know we differ on him. I would think that would be one of the favorite games you saw Marcus Morris play, because in 30 minutes, again, he brought that energy out there when the game started, but from the very beginning, that team was ready, and whatever they did in 7 games on Milwaukee and whatever they were prepared to do wasn't the same as the Celtics were. Will it carry forward? I'm not sure.
What was interesting is talking about the preparation leading up to it. I think that the Milwaukee was like, we're the best team in the series. We know what works for us. We've had this remarkable season. We need to play our game. They didn't make adjustments to the Celtics. And on the other side, obviously, Boston was completely flipping it. They were patient and persistent with their doubles with Giannis. They were smart in terms of their scheme. Offensively, they weren't rushing the glass. On missed shots, they were sagging back and building a wall. They weren't letting Giannis get to the rim in transition. They were limiting his ability to have fast break opportunities. And in the half court, they were playing very, very intelligent basketball. Everyone was on a snake and moving together as a defensive scheme, and they were leaving people open that need to be left open. They were leaving people open like Pat Connaughton, who, please give Pat Connaughton more minutes.
Yeah.
Please give him more minutes. But moving forward,
He's not going to get many minutes when Brogdon comes back.
But that's the point. That when Giannis is getting into the paint and is able to penetrate, because you can only contain him so many times, and he's kicking out. Lopez had a weak game, but overall his spacing was pretty neutralized. What Giannis needs on the perimeter when he sags the defense towards him is someone who can pass, dribble, shoot, do all three.
Yep.
They need someone who when the defender's closing out, they don't know what that guy that they're going towards is going to do. That's why Brogdon is such a huge hole for them, because he is the only guy, besides maybe Middleton, who can do all of those things.
Especially
Middleton
when
had a decent game,
Bledsoe plays against the Celtics.
Well, Middleton, I thought that Jalen played phenomenal defense on Middleton in the first half. Middleton was hitting some remarkable shots. Middleton played really well, and the Celtics have been they're in love with Middleton, because Middleton has always played really well against Boston Celtics. But I think that Bud, he's not one to make big game-to-game adjustments in the playoffs. I think that's going to hurt him. I think he really needs to look at his rotation. I think he should contemplate. I know Tony Snell is slow coming off of an injury, but he should contemplate taking Connaughton all the way out, putting Snell in. He needs more Mirotic. Mirotic only played 20 minutes, and he was a problem. His spacing actually helped because of how far away he was a threat from. And I think that they need to hope and pray that Brogdon comes back soon. He's already been ruled out for Game 2. He's probably out for Game 3. I wouldn't be surprised if he came back for Game 4. But I think that they need to play more DJ Wilson. I think that he could be an interesting threat defensively.
I like him too.
I think that they need just more players that are dynamic on both sides of the ball and have a higher opportunity to take advantage of a collapse on Giannis than the players that they're playing. I wouldn't be surprised if Bud is smart, he should limit Lopez. He should honestly limit Bledsoe, because I don't know what's going on with Bledsoe, and he definitely needs to get Connaughton all the way out.
I think Giannis was baffled.
Yes.
He was baffled.
He was confused.
I think he's
22
and I
and
think
8.
he's questioning going forward how he's going to deal with this. It's like, man, they were always guys there. Every time I tried to get into the paint, thought I'm having is, and I've been down on Kyrie, up on Kyrie. At this point, I'm very up on him. I think I'd rather have Kyrie than Giannis.
I don't know yet, but maybe.
I think I'd rather have Kyrie than Giannis.
Everything that they had to do with Giannis to perplex him, they did. On transition defense, he gets the ball at half court. Sometimes he takes 1 or 2 dribbles and he's at the rim. What they were doing was they were clogging his path to the basket. Yes. So they had 3-4 people right in front of him, and all of a sudden he has to pick up his dribble or pass, and that's exactly what you have to do. You have to disrupt the game through Giannis.
And in the first quarter or so, when he was getting into those situations, he was trying to use counter moves and spins and crosses, but what ended up happening that made him kind of sway away from those in the second half is on spins, we were hitting him hard off the spins. We got a couple fouls, which I thought were very smart fouls. When he spun around the defender, there was another defender there ready to take a shot and hopefully get an offensive foul, because that's a good opportunity to draw offensive fouls. Obviously, Boston ended up on the wrong side of that. But I think that at the end of the day, that helped it, because that Giannis, now he's subconsciously thinking, I'm getting collided and collapsed upon. I spin out of this. Now I know I can't spin. Now I'm going to stop, and now I'm going to pass out more likely. I think that they did a good job in the start of the game, really putting their game, wedging their way into Giannis's head on how to play for the rest of the series. I think that Giannis is obviously going to perform a lot better. He'll probably have a 40-plus point game at least once in this series. He only had 22 in this game. What was weird was he went like 4 for 17 on twos. He went 3 for 5 on threes.
They
were wide open.
I'll give him those threes all series.
We'll give him those threes all series. What's interesting moving forward, Baines suffered a slight sprained ankle, but this was one of the first games that we've thrown Baines on Giannis man-to-man, and I thought Baines did a really strong job. The only time that Baines got beat off the dribble was when Giannis stepped out of bounds on that baseline drive. And I thought Baines was a very reputable option when Horford was out of the game. If you looked at the minutes that Brad used Horford in, they pretty much identically aligned with when Giannis was in the game. I just think that the scheme that we saw from them in this game was, I don't know, besides around the fringes, replacing the role players for role players that are a little bit better and getting Brogdon back healthy, I don't know what adjustments Milwaukee has in their bag to make that big of a difference.
Yeah, it's like going in, like you said, they were just going to go with their game plan.
Right.
And Boston was completely ready for their game plan. And like you said, Bood is not known for switching stuff up drastically.
Bubble. And when you're looking at,
they got a lot to think about.
I think Giannis being baffled is really a key thing here, because his type of game is just so wide open that how do you, as a coach, how do you correct that? How do you get him? How do you get him to be Giannis? If they may be able to consistently take that away. It's possible that they're able to consistently play the same way, and Giannis will have trouble against the Celtics defense this whole series.
I think that he's going to have games where he's teetering on 40, and I think those are the games that are going to be close. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics have a bad shooting game, because that is what the Bucks scheme yields shooting. And when you can have average or strong shooting, you're going to beat the Bucks. But if you have a bad shooting game, the Bucks will win. And I think that we're probably due for at least one bad shooting game. And that's what you need to expect. But I just think that the absence of any presence from Lopez and from Bledsoe and from so many players, and to have to depend on George Hill, who actually played okay. It's such an unusual thing to say the balance of the Milwaukee Bucks, this #1 seed 60-win team, depends on Malcolm Brogdon coming back. And obviously we love Malcolm Brogdon, but it's a very unusual statement. I think that Giannis is going to have a big response game. I think that he's going to continue to attack the hoop. His free throw ails have been a little alarming lately. He's been around 50%, which is a dip from his like 70, 75-ish rate earlier in the season.
Well, that's partly because they're in his head.
Yes, exactly.
He's thinking way too much.
At the end of the game, they showed him on the bench. You could tell he was perplexed.
Distraught.
He had his head in his hands for like 30 straight seconds.
Post game, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing I did think was interesting, the free throw disparity. I didn't think that it was that alarming, or like there was anything wrong. I thought that it wasn't that poorly of a right. We took 8 free throw attempts. There was 4 starters that took no free throws on the Celtics, and the Bucks took 24. The Bucks, that's a little bit closer to their free throw attempts per season. They attempt around 22 a game. Celtics are lower in the league. We attempt around 18 or 19. But again, to go back to what they're giving us, we weren't attacking the hoop to get fouled that often because we had better options earlier in the offense. So
they played a great team game, and Kyrie even said good stuff after the game. I loved it. Kyrie was like, we were there for each other.
Yeah.
And we were all backing each other up. I'm like, geez, I even like what Kyrie's saying.
And we
this
all
is
know
awesome.
I can score whenever we want.
Yeah, and did you see remember the turnover in the first quarter off the pick and roll? Kyrie crossed into the middle of the paint and then did the swoop around pass to Al, but he wasn't there anymore. Went straight out of bounds.
Yep.
So then Kyrie said, like, I had a mistake early and I was hoping I could do things. And Al says, no, Kyrie, that was my fault. I wasn't supposed to be there. And Kyrie was like, I appreciate that, Al. It means a lot.
I was really glad that they didn't win by 30 points, because I pointed out to you last year, that's a kiss of death. And when you win by 30, you almost always in the playoffs lose the next game. So in the fourth quarter, don't go up by 30. I don't want it to be a 30-point blowout.
Well, especially against the Bucks. I mean, they're capable of making runs. Just like the Warriors, they're capable of going 15-0 in a run, like, very quickly. So.
For the rest of the series, how do you see playing out?
I see the same way I saw it, because I think you constantly got to look at this. You're never as good as you look when they're playing like the Celtics play, and you're never as bad as you look when you saw what Milwaukee plays. I think it's still going 7.
7? Celtics?
Celtics. I'm going Celtics. I think
I had Bucks in 6 last week. I'm going to go Celtics in 7 now.
Nice.
Let's talk about the fact that they had a great third period, third quarter.
Yeah,
and they
Third, fourth,
rebounded
eight.
the basketball. That's two things that I've been getting on them all year, and they played
It's
both of
everything we
those
expected
points.
from that team when we were talking
And they got
about
nothing out of Jason Tatum.
No,
we haven't
yeah,
talked
yeah.
about Tatum
but
once.
It was
I had
inconsequential.
Boston in 7 before. I'm going Boston in 6 now. I'm really confident. I think that Gordon
Yeah, they got a
Hayward.
6-game at
Gordon
home.
Hayward is a completely new player, and when
Yes,
the ball
yes.
when the ball is in his hands offensively, I
Absolutely.
could not be more confident about what's going to happen on the floor.
Point forward.
He's making the right decision
Yep.
every single time,
Yes, no
every
mistakes.
single time, and he is the prime microcosm of the defensive scheme. He is getting so many looks
made-
at 12 feet.
He
Easy
made one
jump
play
shots.
in that game. I don't know how much we ran out of time. But he made
Right.
one play in that game that was just so great, and it was such a little thing. But one of his teammates gets in trouble at the top of the key, and there's a guy about to steal the ball off him, and Gordon Hayward sees this is going to go happen, and he goes, bats the ball out himself and takes the ball away,
Yeah,
so his teammate doesn't get it stolen away from him. That's the kind of mindset he's got going on out there.
Yep.
He's supremely confident now, and he feels good about what's happening with him, and I love it.
We're
It's
having
awesome.
we're having
Things
strong
look good.
performances across the board. Tonight we got Toronto and Philly, and the first game in Denver versus Portland.
All good games.
Tomorrow
All
we
worth
got the
watching.
other two. It'll be exciting playoff basketball to watch. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching My Wheelhouse.
Go back and you